Hi, welcome to Math Beast Tutoring, now on YouTube. So today we're going to talk about solving quadratic equations. Now, there's a few ways to solve them, but before we get into that, we're going to remember, what does a quadratic equation look like? We remember it as x squared plus 7x plus 2 equals negative 8. Now the way we can tell that it's a quadratic is we have this x squared here, then we have a term with just x, a term with nothing, and it's equal to something. So there are three ways that we can use to solve a quadratic equation. The first way is by factoring. Another way is to graph. And when all else fails, there's the good old quadratic formula. All these ways are great. We're going to do a separate video for solving by graphing as well as the quadratic formula, but today we're going to focus on solving by factoring. So an important tool to remember, an important tip, is this little number 2 here that shows us that it's a quadratic equation is also our clue that we're going to have up to 2 solutions. Now, in classes, you have different teachers and different textbooks that will refer to our answers in a few different ways. Some of them will refer to them as solutions, and they are solutions, or they'll refer to them as zeros. Also, the same thing. Solving for x, there can be up to 2. And the last one that's a little bit less common is to refer to them as x-intercepts. And we'll talk about that as we get to it. So now, let's jump right in. We're going to solve by factoring. Now, this one, I designed it on purpose. This one is going to have 2 answers. So first things first, step 1 is you want it to be equal to 0. Right now, this equation is equal to negative 8. We don't want it to be negative 8, we want it to be 0. So 8 is negative, is being minus. We're going to plus it on both sides. And now we have our equation, x squared plus 7x, 2 plus 8 is 10, is equal to 0. Now this is super, super important. Always get your quadratic so that it's in a trinomial, because from here we can factor it. Now, the way we factor these is we're going to kind of approach it in a reverse FOIL technique. Now, if you don't understand what FOIL is, look for that video coming soon on how to FOIL binomials. But for now, we're going to take it into a little backwards sort of way. So this number right here is 10, and this right here is 7. So we're going to think of 2 numbers that are going to multiply to positive 10, but add to positive 7. Now, quickest and easiest way to do that, let's think about the factors of positive 10. Let's do them over here. Y'all see that? Maybe not? It's okay. So the factors of positive 10 are 1, and 10, and 2, and 5. Now, which of these pairings is going to add to positive 7? Bing, 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 bing. This one, 2 and 7. So in our 2 binomials, we're going to have x here and x here. That's a plus, so we have plus, and then we'll take our 2 numbers, 2 and 5. And don't forget that these are now equal to 0. Now, remember I said there's going to be 2 answers in this one? Here's where they're going to show up. We take this one, and we set it equal to 0, and we take this one, and we set that one equal to 0 as well. Now, we have 2 very simple equations that we can use to solve for 0. So, subtract 2, x is negative 2, and then over here, subtract 5, and x equals negative 5. Now, here are our 2 answers. These are the spots where our graph, remember the quadratic function is a U-shaped graph, these are the two spots where it's going to touch or cross the x-axis. There's two ways to write it. We can just say x equals -2 and x equals -5, depending on your teacher, depending on your curriculum, or your computer program that's programmed to accept very specific kinds of answers. I'm so sorry if that's you, that's pretty difficult. But if you're a computer program where your teacher does not accept this, then they probably want the answer as coordinate points. Now remember, coordinate points are written as x, y. And since these are zeros, since these are the x-intercepts, that means that the y-coordinate of these guys is 0. So we can also write these as 2 coordinate points, -2, 0 for that one, and -5, 0 for that one. Thanks so much for watching my video on my channel. Tune in, subscribe, whatever you want to call it. What do we do on YouTube? We subscribe, like, share, blah, all that garbage. But do all that because next video is going to be solving by graphing. We're going to go through all the things you need to do to graph a quadratic function, as well as what to do when we have something that is not factorable. How do we figure out how to graph it, as well as a fail-safe. When you can't think of a way to factor, you can't figure out how to graph it, there's a formula that you can use that always works. See you next time.